Quiz.
Aloha, movie nerds, dorks, and weirdos. Welcome to Why It's Straight Television. I'm your host, Matthew Salanoa, a filmmaker of over 17 years, here to bring you the filmmaker's perspective on television. So, with that being said, let's get into season 3 of Squid Game. I'm just going to talk about this season overall, some of my favorite highlights, some of my favorite moments, and I have to say, what an excellent show. I think season 3 is a nearly flawless conclusion. Yes, I would like certain things to have occurred, but I think on the whole, it's pretty much. It feels right. It feels like the story that should have been said right from the beginning. The fact that from the end of season 1, player 456, who already won, deciding to get right back into the game, not because he wants more money, but because he wants to save lives. And that he, despite all the struggle, especially in season 2, where there's no way he should have made it, despite all the struggle, the conclusion, I thought, it's not what I wanted, but it did feel like the correct ending. So, without spoiling it for those of you who haven't seen Squid Game 3, if you're interested in seeing it, you haven't seen it yet, if you love Squid Game 1 and 2, this is the conclusion. We are riding to the conclusion. Season 2 ends with the attempted rebellion. 456 leads a handful of rebellious players to try and take over the game, beat the soldiers, beat the PlayStation face characters, and sadly, player number 1, who we know has been the front man the entire time, betrays them, makes it seem like he's died, and it ends up being the case that his betrayal is what makes them fail. They would have succeeded if not for this betrayal. So we come into season 3 in the aftermath of these choices. We have the connecting factors of in season 2, Soldier 11 was protecting player 246 or something like that. I forget his exact number, but she was protecting him. And now this comes to a head when she must rescue him from being organ harvested, and she's trying to help him escape at the same time as we have a morally crushed 456 re-entering the Squid Game with everybody else. And we have things to come to a head with Jun Hee, who she's been carrying a baby. Player 222 has been carrying a baby in her stomach this whole time. She ends up having the kid, and I did not get the actor's name. I'm looking for it, but which actor is it? I'm trying to find the actor. There's the character who is trying to win the money so that she can get surgery to transition from being a male to a woman. And I wasn't sure where it would end up going. In season 2, she becomes part of this tight knit little group, which is the mother and son pairing. The son's number is 007, which I thought was interesting. But he himself could not be further from James Bond. He's actually a very pathetic, weak willed character. And the mom you see is there trying to help him with his debt. And it's a sad scenario. But we see this tight knit little group form out of 456, player 1, the front man, Jun Hee eventually, and the mother son. And although I forgot the player number and name, I call her Super Trans, because right from the first game where everyone had to be linked up to each other, or not, it's like it was the second game, the Rainbow Room, where 5 players had to be linked up to each other. This is the first team up of who I call Super Trans. She was a wonderful character who became a leader in a moment of stress and really helped people get through. And it's one of those things where you can kind of understand, as someone who has that kind of gender identity, always feeling the pressure of society to fit one way or the other, and coming from that angle of kind of recognizing that people need support in a particular way. She ends up being the kind of emotional support for everybody to help them get through every one of these games. And fantastically, in season 3, we have the hide and seek game where she's teamed up again with Jun Hee 222 and the mom, and we get some of the best action. I thought the military coup, or I thought that the player coup or attempted coup at the end of season 2, I thought that was excellent action. And then we get Super Trans versus the Taggers, because we have people in blue who are supposed to hide, and then we have the Taggers who are in red who have knives. And it's this game of the people in blue get keys to open certain doors, but you don't know where those doors are going to go. And the gag is, once you've unlocked a door, you can't lock it again. So it's such a crazy game, but we get some excellent action fight scenes between, again, I'm sorry I don't remember the player's name or number. I just call her Super Trans, because the fight scenes she has defending Jun Hee and the mom are so exhilarating. The choreography is so good. And you remember, she comes from a military background. Technically, in Korea and some Asian countries, everyone's required to have military service. I know in Malaysia, everyone's required to have at least 6 months to a year of some military training. And in the case of South Korea, I believe it's everyone's required for 2 years. But this person clearly actually had more experience than that. That, despite this training, it's not like everyone sticks with it. But you see the people who are more legit have actual fighting skill, and that's what Super Trans. I call her Super Trans because that's the only way I remember. But her fights are so good. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to get into the whole political angle. I know some people are like, "Oh, I refuse to call them that or whatever." You know what? I don't really care that much. If someone's going through all the trouble and wants to be called to her, I'll do it. But I'll end my political thoughts there. But just in the case of this character, because the character's so good and performed so well, you know, I will, and I just hope it's not offensive. But in my mind, I'm like, it's this to me is like Daredevil for blind people, right? He's technically blind, but he has all these amazing superpowers. So it becomes this kind of that's the way I see her. I'm like, oh, you're the Super Trans. You're here. You want to transition, but you are also this incredible hero throughout the entire show, and especially in that particular episode, the Taggers versus the Hiders. Such cool action and such great payoffs. The characters that die in that episode are nuts. And then we get the setup of the final games, which is it's a Squid Game again, but now it's on these incredible gigantic pillars where people have to be knocked off of they again have the shapes of the triangle, circle, and square, and people got to be knocked off of each pillar in order for a player to win. So it's a really exciting, exhilarating season that comes to a very emotional ending and surprising ending. Although not that surprising, but I would say, yeah, for me, what a great piece of television. I know my roommate wasn't crazy about the finale, but I thought this was the only right way to end the show, especially with the terms established by the beginning of season 2, where it's like it seems like there's more players and they're being annihilated. And because 246 is rescuing so many people, they have to play all these multiplayer games in order to ensure the maximum amount of casualties. So it's an amazing game of not just the Squid Games themselves, but our hero doing everything he can to save as many people as humanly possible. And when we reach the ending and he realizes the limits of what he's able to do here, that the game is so heavily rigged against everyone, because that's the whole point of it, you know. And to reach the final moments of the episode, I was satisfied with it. I knew there was only two possible outcomes: he wins or he doesn't win. You know, I mean, there's no other. These people are too good at what they do. They're organized enough to know where he is, wherever he is. So it's not going to happen the way we want it to happen. Or the only way for him to win is that he has to somehow make a miracle happen. So I thought I was really happy with this conclusion. It was a ride, to say the least. And I think the terrible but fun part of the show is you end up falling in love with the cast. I really didn't think they could make me love this new cast, but especially getting into season 3 with everyone we were whittled down to, as if they really knew who our favorites would be, you know, because some good characters were killed in season 2, but also a lot of them were kind of shady characters, or they just had some, you know, like Thanos, like we're not nobody's missing Thanos, fake rapper guy. Although apparently he's a real K-pop rapper in North Korea, so I mean in South Korea, so good for him. But I gotta say, I was very pleased with this. So with that being said, if you haven't seen Squid Game 3 and you were just looking for someone to tell you should you go or not, that's my recommendation. Be prepared for a tough ending. It's a really tough ending and an emotional ride all the way through. I mean, this is as raw as it gets for studio television. But I was very happy with it. I thought this was the only way it could end, and I'm glad it ended that way. That's my thoughts. So, if you're ready for some spoilers, I'm gonna get into spoilers now. Spoiler time. Spoiler territory. Spoiler. I should really learn spoiler in Korean if I'm gonna do this. Yeah, let's see if I can do it. Nah, I'm not gonna do that. Anyway, spoiler time. So, spoilers, okay? I'm gonna tell you things that I loved that happened, and man, right up front, the first episode of season 3, Soldier 11 uh, feigning the death of 246 and joining the organ harvesters only to betray them. So much happens right in the first episode. She immediately elevates to one of my favorite characters. I mean, she was already intriguing before. We got the whole episode bit where the organ harvesters attack her in her own room, which was a scary scene. And really, like, it puts me on her side so fast, and also makes me think, oh well, again, there's only one of two ways this can go. And I'm so glad that in the first episode of this season she has wiped out most of the organ harvesters and managed just to get her. Well, it turns out I wanted them to be more related than they were, but I guess there's a flashback or scene in season 2 that explains her connection, and that she knew him as the father of a kid that she entertained, and the kid, and she was a bunny at the time at a what do you call it, at a fairground, and the kid saw her without her mask and freaked out. So I guess there's some really, would you remember all of this? I guess you would. You know, I think I've definitely had moments where I've screwed up working retail where I think, oh, I really wish I'd done something different. I still remember that customer and the look on their face when I screwed up. And so, I think she had that moment, but it was a really personal thing that she couldn't let go. And so to see her rescue him, and the entire season is her trying to get him freedom, which was like great. It's like you really in season 2, she's just kind of looking out for him without looking out for him. But in this season, it's just all in. Like she has no other option but to be out with her mission, and seeing the captain that she has to deal with, and that they have a connected origin with both being from North Korea as defectors and runaways. I was very exhilarated by how that conflict accelerates to the end. But I really love her. My in particular favorite moments of the first episode is all about her standing up to the organ harvesters, wiping them out, and getting the doctor to rescue 246. I thought, man, that was exciting. And on the flip side, we have 456, our hero, who has just been, who was just lost. He lost one of his best friends, and he's lost all hope. Completely, his spirit completely broken. And the first thing that gets him out of having a broken spirit is the need for revenge. And we had one of the characters who said he was part of the military too. It turns out had a fake tattoo, stolen valor. And if he had just brought the magazines during the coup, our hero might have had a chance. But he never brought the magazines to give to our players who are fighting the the Squid Game soldiers, because those weapons armaments weren't brought back. That was a huge reason that they lost. So it was to see the first of all the build up to the game, which I loved, because we have everyone getting their vests red and blue, and then not only that, they're given one last chance to switch colors. And I thought it was terrible how the mom was first put in red and 007 in blue, and then they switch, and how it all ends up being. And and then it just ends on the cliffhanger of, oh, the game's about to start. But I love how it ends with seeing the blue people enter the Hall of Rooms, and the next episode begins with the red people entering the Hall of Rooms, and you don't know where the blue people went. And so the show does an excellent job of switching perspectives from episode to episode to increase that tension, because we get this whole 20 minutes of people contemplating, should I switch my vest or not? And it's almost annoying, but at the same time I'm like, yeah, but once people do switch vests, it totally amps up the tension of what's going to happen. So I think from a story construction point, the creators of this show and writers of this show, they really thought out hard how they're going to get the it doesn't feel like they're it feels a little bit like they're stretching it out, but at the same time it felt like, how can we get the most amount of tension? And they do it through characters talking, you know what I mean, which is kind of a requirement of television. Characters have to talk to each other and bicker and argue or whatever, and they managed to do all of that in the guise of this game, which is truly life or death. Whatever you choose, it might be the last thing you do today. So the fact of the matter, and I love the production design as well, when they're switching vests and you see that the set has one side that is a giant keyhole and the other side you don't realize it's a knife, but then you get, the blue people get the keys, the red people get knives, but it turns out all the blue people actually have different keys. So if you team up and you figure it out, people who have the circle and square and triangle keys together can escape. And it's just I love that the Squid Games. There's always a hidden rule or something. There's a game within the game, and that's what this show is all about. The game within the game, and I think that's why it's so excellent that in season two it was all very fundamental. It was all very basic games where essentially it's set up that if you do team up, you can potentially survive, or you can get the odds in your favor. So that is an element introduced in season two that in season one team ups can always backfire. In season two, yeah, team ups can always backfire, but actually it really is beneficial to team up with people, especially when you have our hero saving as many lives as he can. And so I love that it ends up being the team up of Super Trans in episode two with those like, incredible action sequences. Then we have the con artist spiritual lady finally getting her demise after mocking our hero, and he's gonna kill her. But she's like, "Oh no, no, no! The person who betrayed you is running this way," and so she seems to save her own life for a minute, and ends up that she teams up with the leader of the people who vote yes to keeping doing the games. The kind of he's a bit thicker, older guy, player 100, and that team up ends up being fatal for her. And I thought that was great. Minsu, that's the tiny guy who watched his only friend there get killed, saving his life. Seeing him take the drugs from the Vanos's best friend guy, and then he goes nuts. I thought what I think is interesting, season two continues parallels thematically from season one about this notion of where we fit in with society, how much we should be trying to fit in. And season two, by making the vote an active part of the game, makes it more of a game show, but simultaneously makes it almost more of a political statement, which is kind of like you win or lose no matter what. But definitely, if you keep playing, you'll lose your life. And I think it's interesting how those by the end of season two, getting into season three, it's a completely different thing where now everyone who would have voted no, let's go home, the majority of those people are dead, and they're forced to go along with a democracy that's not really beneficial to them. You kind of see how this we get into sort of the deeper, darker themes of like, is it really democracy? You know what I mean? If everyone's voting for something that's terrible, you know what I mean, just for the hope of some kind of personal benefit. So there's a deeper aspect to the show that I think is trying to get people to look at what they do in their lives. I think going back to episode one of season two, where the actor from Train to Busan, the lead, he's the I forgot the game, Dachi, the guy who essentially goes around and meets people and challenges them to play the game where he has to slap them if they lose, and only if they win do they get invited to the Squid Game. So when you see his episodes and you see the bread or lottery ticket episode, and it's such a pointed, it's clearly pointed at, look at society, look at how we value things, how we'll value a proposed potential boon of money over just having bread to eat for today. You know what I mean? And I thought that's a very powerful point. I think season one makes that point with our main character, who keeps wasting every dollar he gets off of people on his gambling, and that's the problem that he's just trapped in. He won't stop gambling. He won't stop getting himself in trouble. And And he kind of epitomizes the problem that everyone has that gets them into the Squid Game, is that people struggle with addiction and people have different reasons for doing this. And how are we gonna heal? But it's so much on an individual level. Whereas season two, I think, is really attacking society and how it's built on these layers of convincing people something that's not good for them is more important than something that is good for them. And I think when we compare the beginning of season two with the bread and lottery tickets to the ending of season three, where essentially it's 456 holding Jun Hee's baby, you know what I mean? And it's save the baby or save yourself for all that money. And he really picks the baby. You know, he's the homeless person that picked the bread. Like this, it's really about what's the most valuable thing today, right now, in this moment. Is it the pie in the sky, or is it what's right in front of you right now? And it's only one homeless person who picks the bread over the lottery ticket in the first episode of season two, and it's only 456 who genuinely wants to save the baby. Not that it's only him. Supertrans and the mom of 007, they were both heroes too, but he was the only hero to make it to the very end. And the fact that season one of season two also, or season episode three of season two, it starts off with his mission to save these people. I think it's such a beautiful ending that he sacrifices himself to save the baby. You know, the fact that the baby's born in episode two, and this ongoing conflict of Jun Hee and her ex boyfriend, who she just wants nothing to do with, and there's nothing he can do that's going to make it better. Every choice he makes things worse. The fact that he keeps killing, even though he only needed to kill one person, and the fact that he's the one who kills Supertrans after she does all that stuff to protect the mother and Jun Hee, who becomes a mother. You know, after Supertrans does all that, it's the ex-boyfriend that kills Supertrans, which is just one of those mega heartbreaking moments. And it's one of those things that, again, he had hope. He said he would protect her and ends up killing her protector. So it's just that you see he's just either doomed, destined, or it's just really, at the end of the day, it's his own decisions. He keeps making these destructive decisions that hurt other people for his own gain, which is what Thanos accused him of in the first place. And it turns out what we learn about him in season three is that Thanos was right. That is absolutely who this character is. He takes advantage of other people for his own personal benefit, and it rides all the way to the finale. Even though he tries, he wants to be a good person, you know, but he is not the one that sticks around and tries to save the baby or tries to save Jun Hee. He saves himself, which tells you everything about who he is. So he could have offered, hey, get on my back, I'll do the hopping for you, something. But instead chooses to save himself in the name of saving the baby. But by the end of the season, he's the one who wants to throw the baby off the pillar. And it's just, you just realize there's nothing about this guy. He's not a redeemable person. He's the guy who's going to keep going the wrong way. And that's the difference between him and 456, our hero. 456 was a user, but he changed, he transformed, and he always did have a good heart. He was just going the wrong way. And now he's trying so hard to go the right way. And this kid is this negative reflection of himself. He's a kid who did make a lot of money for himself and lost it all because he was ultimately doing the wrong thing. and so many people, including Thanos, paid for that. So while the ex-boyfriend of Jun Hee, he has a different origin and a different reason for being in the Squid Game. Ultimately, he's being hounded by his own demons in season 2. And then season 3 makes it really reveals that it's always going to be his own fault. You know what I mean? He claims that he was a victim of everything, but at the very least, change then, and he doesn't change. His true character is revealed in conflict, that he's always going to choose destroying someone else for his own benefit. And whether or not he was telling the truth before, when he's told Thanos, hey, I lost money too, that's why I'm here. For certain, we know now he did made a conscious choice in season 3 to be taking people out for his own benefit, whereas he should have just either killed that crazy guy himself, or either way, the what matters is that he kept choosing destruction of others over any kind of sacrifice on his own part. And that's why Jun Hee rejects him when it comes to the jump rope episode. And the jump rope episode, when we get into the jump rope episode, I love that. I love that's a fantastic two-parter. And in particular, that one of my favorite cliffhangers is 456 getting across the jump ropes, the jump rope bridge with the baby, and then the guy that follows him starts pushing people off who make it across, and him going 456, why are you doing this? What are you doing? And the guy looks at him, I'm playing the game. And what I love is that it's kind of a sign that these people who voted for this and who are still here are so depraved, and the game has made them depraved. But on the other hand, again, when push comes to shove, the game really reveals who people's true character is. And this guy's madness has manifested itself as, well, I can kill everyone because it doesn't matter. And we can end the game right now if I just kill everyone here. And which is, again, it's completely against what 456 is here for. He wants to save as many lives as he can. And that's everyone, even these crappy people. Even when you get to the finale and they're on those pillars with those people, he wants as many people as possible to make it. And I do believe he would have sacrificed himself to save all of them if any of them just had a good heart. But by the end, he was one good man swimming amongst sharks. Well, a couple of them were sharks. Turns out, yeah, Jun Hee's ex-boyfriend, total shark. But man, I thought the jump rope episode was fantastic. Really says a lot about each character. But I think what was devastating I think it's before the jump rope starts, because the hide and seek episode ends with the mom having to kill 007. That's one of my top moments of the show as well. Not just Super Trans. And so my top moments so far, Super Trans kicking everyone's butt in episode 2. Soldier 11 getting one up on the organ harvesters. Okay, these are some of my top favorite moments. But one of my top favorite moments that's completely heartbreaking and heart-wrenching is that 007, the snotty son, remember, in season 2, everyone could have gone home, but 007 was the vote that kept everyone in the game, that led to everything that happened after that. So it ends up being him who he can't kill anybody as a tagger. And all he wants to do is either kill Jun Hee herself or kill the baby. That he's at the point willing to do that, or kill them both, so that he doesn't have to die. And then his mom ends up killing him. And it was just, that by itself was a great cliffhanger as well as an awful event. And this is where the story is just so good because we weeded out the weaker characters, and now season three is all of our favorite characters and how they get pitted against each other. That was a heartbreaking moment where it was just like, man, because I knew the moment he voted for everyone to stay, the mom was going to have to do something about it. The mom was going to have to confront her son for his behavior at some point. And she never does until this moment, where she's desperately fighting her own son to keep him from doing something terrible. And you realize she has always fought to protect him and to keep him safe, but he has never fought for himself or fought for a real, genuinely good reason. So the fact that now it comes to that point where she's got to stab her own son in the back to protect this young woman and her son, that was a heartbreaker. Another top moment. And even harder than that, in the beginning of the following episode, when the son's not even totally dead, and then the soldier comes in to kill him, to finish him off, and the mom says no, and you just hear it, no, gunshot, and it's like, oh no. And that's what leads her to beg 456 to do what he can to protect Junhee's baby. That was just excellent. That was excellent. I and then she ultimately takes herself out of the game, and that was another heartbreaking breaking moment. But I think, when we get into that jump rope episode, that's what again builds the tension, because now 456 is motivated again, not just to get in the game, but to look out for someone again, which I think, in terms of story construction, the fact that season three starts out with a completely dispirited 456. Season two, it starts off, he's got all the fire burning in his little steam engine to save everybody. But season three starts off with him completely soul crushed. And episode two gives him the motivation of revenge to get in the game. And episode three gives him the motivation of, here's a life worth protecting. This baby has nothing to do with this game. Here's a life worth protecting. Please do it. And it's at the request of the mom. And the mom telling her story of always having to look out for her son. And then she ends up being the one that kills him. And even though it goes without words and she just takes herself out, it's still utterly heartbreaking when that happens. But it's that motivation 456 needs. He needs to get back in the game and start caring about people again, because that's what he came here for. And so when he gets the baby across, that's another just top notch, worth the price of admission, or in this case, Netflix subscription, worth the price of admission of 456 getting the baby across that bridge. Because it's also his own hope. His hope gets across that bridge with that baby, and then he wants to save Junhee, and then she takes herself out of the game. It is an emotional roller coaster, season three, but these moments are so golden. And even when we get to the part where the captain, we have the detective from season one now on a boat with mercenaries trying to find this island, and the captain himself is betraying them. And the conclusion of that, where it's apparent that they're going to find the island one way or another, and the captain has to try and kill everybody, ending in his own demise at the hands of the detective. But it was such a ride watching that happen. And they finally get to the island thanks to 246 getting on a boat and getting chased actually by two of the organ harvesters, and he gets rescued. That was a great moment. And the last two episodes, it feels dragged out again because now our what remains of the voters who voted to stay, it's basically all of them against 456 and the baby. And it's a bit drawn out, all their discussion. They discuss way too much, I think, for how to deal with the baby. But what matters to me is that ultimately the ex-boyfriend of Jun Hee is playing everybody, and ultimately so that he can get the baby himself and have an easy kill for the final level. But it's not that easy when 456 is that motivated to keep the baby alive. So I was just like totally on the roller coaster. Is the ex-boyfriend going to redeem himself? And he ends up pushing the last guy who surrendered after trying to kill them both. He surrendered and ends up pushing that guy off the off the pillar. That was nuts. I liked the rich people who came to watch the show. The very attractive Asian woman. Even though they're all in masks, I love that this time around we don't have the old creepy guy. This time around it's kind of a little bit more of a younger crowd. But when we get to everyone watching the final game and the fact that 456 sacrificed himself with the humans, we are not horses. Humans are, and he has no words. When he sacrifices himself, seeing all the rich people get stuck with pause and awe in this moment, realizing something really significant just happened here. And I think all of them feel just a little bit of guilt. But I love that before this episode, in the fifth episode, when everyone's having dinner and everyone goes to bed, 456 is called up to meet the front man, and the front man tells him, "Look, here's a knife. Go and kill everyone in their sleep, and you and the baby can walk free. This game cannot be played with two people." But I love that we get a little window into the front man, and we get his flashback of having the same choice be given him from the number one from season one, the old man. He gets the same choice given to him and is given the knife, and he decides to kill all the players in their sleep. So when you see that this man has given up his soul to become part of this organization, I felt like when he was giving 456 the knife, and he even takes off his mask and says, "Hey, I'm the number one. I'm the guy who killed everybody and betrayed you. But this is your only option to get out of here." And I always felt like from season two, number one, the front man, I always felt like he was really looking out for him. I think because obviously he was in charge in season one, because he's been watching this whole thing, I think some part of him is attached to the humanity and the heart of 456. That there's something about him that he sees himself in him, but he sees the guy who won't give up. And the key difference here is in the front man's flashback, he gives in. He sells his soul. He kills everyone in their sleep to survive. But when we get to 456, he offers to sacrifice himself, if only to keep the ex-boyfriend and the baby alive. But the ex-boyfriend's clearly not going to do that. He wants to kill the baby. So you can see even in his reasoning and everything is like, why do you care so much about the baby? Did something happen with you and Jenny? And you see all the working of anxiety and paranoia and jealousy and all these very self-destructive emotional things that he's got going on. To realize 456 really just means what he says, and he's here to do the right thing. You know, and then for them to end up battling it out, and ooh, 333 does not make it. Oh no. But to see the epic conclusion of the young man who you realize he's never going to be a 456. He's never going to stop sacrificing other people for himself. And to see 456 have that character growth of realizing this person is not worth saving. Actually, some people do need to get wiped out, which is kind of the entire reason of the Squid Game. All of these people are people who vote against the lives of the people they care about every day of the week. And when they steal from them, when they do these awful things. And in the case of 333, in the case of 333, yeah, he's not going to change. He's in fact now he's deliberate. If he didn't mean to screw people over in season 2, he's is deliberately screwing people over now. So it's powerful to see 456 have the character growth of realizing, you know what, it really isn't just the people running the game. There's people in this game I can't save, and it is what it is. So, tester. So seeing him have that, even that growth of realizing not everyone's worth saving, that was incredible because it just makes it more real and raw and emotional. But man, when it came down to the point of, well, he's taking everyone else out, and it's just him and the baby, and he saves the baby and sacrifices himself, even though you're seeing the front man through the mask, you feel the weight of that decision really affecting him, and you see again even the rich people so affected by the sacrifice. And I love that because he's 456 has played the game before. He looks straight at the viewing window where the judges are. So it was powerful to see him come around like that, but also to save the baby. But that's the rules of the game. It's a hard game, and it was emotionally riveting. But I do love the subtle social commentary of like how much people are willing to throw away, even their own children, if it means some financial success. So I was thoroughly impressed with this show. It was such a heartbreaker. It won me from beginning to end, and I am dozing off now. But I think this is a wonderful show. I love the epilogue. I love that. It's too bad. You know, 246 gets saved by the detective, right? And then they even call the Coast Guard. But this group is so organized and ready. They have a self destruct ready. You know what I mean? It's it's crazy. But all that being said, what a wonderful season. I love I love that the front man brought 456's money to his daughter and delivered the baby with the baby's winnings to his brother, to the detective's home, and essentially gives him a way to live. And my favorite thing, I love that this ends with the daughter, 456's daughter, that the front man brings a box with 456's belongings, which is just his jumpsuit, and then the money that he won put on a credit card. So that was interesting. But yeah, I thought that was such a touching way to end that. And then the final tag of the movie, the final tag of the show, when we see the car stops near an alley, the car that's driving frontman around stops in an alleyway, and then he sees in the alleyway someone playing Dachi, and it's Kate Blanchett of all people, slapping the Dachi cards with the homeless guy and smacking him in the face. I love that Kate Blanchett shares that little look with the front man. It's kind of, they recognize each other, they know who each other are, and then he just drives on and lets her do what she does. I'm very excited for seeing a potential Squid Game USA and other countries. I thought that tag scene was perfect. I really am excited for more to come. I wish 456 had lived, but yeah, the way these games are designed, I don't see how you could live. So all in all, what a fantastic season. an excellent conclusion to a beautiful story. Really has a lot to say about us in society, how we think, what we value, and I hope people pick that up as well as enjoying the show as a whole. If you got this far and you made it, thank you very much for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing so that I can make more. I need to get up to the 500 subscribers and 5,000 views if I want to make some money out of this. So I don't know how to do Patreon yet. It's not something I'm ready to do. I don't know. But right now, if I can get those likes and subscribes, you'd really be helping me out. So again, if you made it this far, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully I'll see you next week. And until next time, mahalo and aloha.